All right, so we'll directly jump into the topic. Firstly, I'd like to thank Y Crime and Forensic Fusion for hosting this session, for continuously being that bridge in filling the gap between theory and practicals, and constantly helping the new students have a very fair understanding of what actually uh, criminology and forensic sciences is. So today my topic, there'll be no PPT, it'll just be me sharing informally what I have learned and what the system is like in India as well as world over. Because see, I hope all of you are part of in your course criminology and forensic science. So you are part of the theories. You will be learning through internships and your courses on what criminology and forensic sciences theoretically. So I thought that I'll use this introductory hour to actually throw some light on what it is in field. Has actually criminology and forensic science in theory translated effectively into field? That is what most of my talks, the agenda of my talk will be based on. And tomorrow we have another session, concluding session, where I'll be covering in detail the theories of crime. So, all right. So I'll be speaking both in Hindi and English so that we have an interactive session. All right. So I'll directly jump into the topic by trying to define what criminology is. So, I think the oldest profession the humans have actually come up with is crime. As far as humanity has existed, crime has also existed. Crime is not a new age phenomenon. Although crime has always been a step ahead of society, and whatever new the society has come up with, crime and criminals have already gelled with the new technologies, or with they have been able to keep up with the pace of the increasing technology or the increasing social dynamics. For example, crimes today, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, nobody would believe that you have a cell phone in your pocket that can literally, for example, today only in one of WhatsApp group that I'm part of, somebody sent an APK format file in the group. So most of the people, out of curiosity, would actually click on that link, and rest we would know what would happen. There's a lot of embezzlement of crime, cash related crimes that are. But then again, 20 years ago, we could not even believe that a uh, small device which can be in our pocket can actually lead to losses. So, but then again, crime has always been able to keep up with time. That's one of the beautiful things I've noticed about crime. And one of the oldest profession in the world is stealing. So that has existed since humanity has existed. So what I'm trying to say is criminology is a unilinear vector. So what do we mean by unilinear vector? It's that there's no going back. For example, if the crime rate of a specific country, for example, India, is let's say 2%. So it's not that we are, although we today we have really developed courses. We have people who have understood crime, and there are people who are dedicatedly working towards crime prevention. But that doesn't mean that crime will reduce or we'll come up with effective ways to combat crime. It will only increase. For example, if we talk about crimes that affect body, and specifically gender-based violence, what the research has been telling is the more the country develops, the more there are chances of sexual assaults and sexual violence and crimes like rape against children and women. There's no going back. So it's very important to understand crime as we go on with the time. All right. So how do we define criminology? So criminology in itself is a non-existing field. For example, Psychology is understanding why, how, behaviors. Sociology is the why and how of how humans behave socially. We've got biology, we've got pure sciences. You can define all of those, but criminology individually you cannot define because criminology individually doesn't exist. Criminology is always ideas that are borrowed from different fields. So it's called a multidisciplinary field. So criminology in itself is a non-existing field, but criminology mostly is coupled with sociology and psychology. So if you look at the earlier criminologists who were into the field, mostly developed criminology as a field of sociology. Most of the earlier criminologists were sociologists who were specialized in studying crime. So criminologist is also a new age term. But then, and as time went on, people started understanding the individuality of a human. The psychology also became a part of criminology. Well, criminology became a part of psychology. So, but then today, if we see, so what I have seen is most of the well, there's nothing wrong in it. Most of the students who are into criminology have a tendency of writing criminologist under their profile. I've also seen people print criminologist on their bike and all. But then who is a criminologist? That's a very that's what I have been thinking for some time. So who is a criminologist? Somebody who studies crime, somebody who understands crime, somebody who works with the police, somebody who understands the judiciary, who works with judges, or who understands the phenomenon of punishment, who works in corrections, or is it forensic sciences, developing new effective methods of investigation? Are those people criminologists? So what I have realized is a criminologist is again a multidisciplinary person. So a criminologist needs to be a psychologist. He needs to be a thinking. Voice is breaking. My voice is not clear.
Yes, sir. Now it is clear.
Perfect. All this Vodafone I say. Should I reconnect to Wi-Fi? Please message on in the chat if it's not clear. Okay. So as I was saying, a criminologist is someone who is jack of all, and he also needs to be master of all. It's not like jack of all and master of none. For example, a criminologist should be an excellent psychologist. He should be an excellent sociologist. He should be an excellent social worker. He should understand biology. He should understand economics, because economics is a very important part of understanding why certain sections of society behave in certain way that some people term deviant. And so economics is also a very big part of criminology. And computer sciences is also becoming a part of criminology. So a criminologist is someone who is like a master of a lot of subjects. So again, again, coming back to the question, how do we define criminology? Uh, that has actually the definition of criminology has evolved over times. For example, if we talk about how crime has the definition of crime, criminology has evolved over time. Earlier, it was based on demonological school of thought. That was way before time. Okay, people also call those dark ages when we were not so into understanding humans. When we had a lot of religion deciding factors, religion being the major decision factor in sociology. So people, what they said was crime was a result of demonological factors. For example, if someone is behaving deviantly or which is not according to norm, will be influenced by demons. Now it sounds a bit odd, but then that's the beauty of social sciences. It always evolves with time, which is also a reason I well, personally don't consider criminology a science, although very critical and That's a very critical thing that I just said. But what I've realized is, for example, in science, science may, if, for example, in chemistry, if I say, if I mix A and B, C is the result. So that A and B resulting into C will be common all along everywhere. If I do it currently in my home, and if I go and do it in a lab in Delhi, or if I go do it in South Africa, the results will always be same. That is why science is always considered a rational subject. But then, unfortunately, social sciences is not, doesn't behave that way. You may have different things happening in the same condition. For example, there might be a broken family. So, broken family is cited as a major reason for people turning deviants. Most of the criminals, if we look at their childhood history, had a very bad childhood, adverse childhood. They had a single parent and very poor condition that they were brought up in. Uh, but then you also have, so it's called twin studies that were conducted in the West earlier, where twins of the same house were subjected to experiments, and they were in the same condition, same family, same sociological condition, but then only some of them resulted in deviancy. So again, it's, I don't know, I'm nobody to make this big claim, but then personally, I felt that social sciences is not science. But then what happened was, see, earlier in times, everybody wants to keep up, right? So most of the social sciences were called pseudo sciences by scientists, because scientists had scientific explanations. They conducted experiments, and they had clear results that could be replicated as well as seen. It was very evident that A plus B equals C, 2 plus 2 equals 4. There's no logical, or there's no rocket science behind proving science. And then all of these other sciences, such as psychology, they were termed pseudo scientific earlier. Then, just to keep up, they also tried calling social sciences as sciences. But then I think it's okay. Social scientists should be comfortable with not falling in the bracket of science and being like giving justice to their own field. Okay, so what I was trying to say is, crime, the definition of crime and criminology has always evolved. Then came the rational school. So in the 17th and 18th century, we'll be covering the details of theories of crime tomorrow. I'm just giving an overview of what crime is. Then there were a lot of social thinkers. There was this age of Renaissance in France. There were a lot of social thinkers that developed out of the separation of church and the state. So the community, the society was evolving, and there was a lot of separation between the church and the state. So eventually, a lot of people came together and they decided that religion, okay, can be a basis for a lot of morality, but then that needs to be separated from state. And you need to come up with an entity called the government that will govern the people. And there'll be a lot of other things, and so religion should not be the sole base. So based on that, there were a lot of utilitarian philosophy that came into being in this. Voice clear? I switched. I switched my connection. Can I continue, please? Oh, all right. Sorry, second funny thing. We dream of being a digital India, and most of the times I end up saying hello, hello. My voice is not. Now I've changed. I've connected to high-speed Wi-Fi. Okay. All right. So, so again, concluding, as time went on, so again, so people, So demonological school. Then came the biological school. People started explaining biology, so that people were born criminals. There were a lot of so that's where the father of criminology, Lombroso, evolved, and he said that most of the behaviors are because people are born that way. Your body, if you study the body of a person, that can result into crimes. But then again, that's all debunked. But it's also important to study the old theories because we need to know where we came from. Okay, and eventually there were a lot of sociological reasons, there were a lot of psychological reasons, and there were currently not currently so currently there have been no new theories on criminology. So the latest is around 200 years ago, which was neo theories. Neo is new. So people started using Marxist ideas, radical ideas in explaining crime, that crime is neither psychological, sociological, or something that a person brings in. It's because of the structure of the society that people are forced to be deviant. So all of those theories have different people in different time, in different set of society, have tried to explain why people behave deviantly and why people end up being criminals. But then what if, in a nutshell, today if we have to define criminology, so it can be defined as a person from the process of being deviant. That can include his surroundings that he grew up in, the psychological condition that forces him to be deviant, till then he commits the crime, then he gets into the criminal justice system, then there's punishment, that he gets imprisoned, and he gets out of the prison, he gets repatriated into the society, he gets adjusted into the society, and he starts living a normal life. So the whole cycle of the start of thought of crime till the end of the person and away from the circle of crime is what broadly can be defined as criminology. Okay, but then there's no set definition of criminology. It can be based on what your school of thought is. So that's in total an introduction of what criminology is. And if I so how did this idea of crime or criminology came into being? So all of you might have, so people are interested in history, might have noticed that most of the early human settlements were near water bodies. If you see Mesopotamia, if you see Harappa, and if you see all of those society developments, I'm talking way ago, okay, when we were Homo sapiens. Now we are Homo sapiens. So all of those establishments started near a water body because it's convenient bringing up a settlement there. So consider me and Swapnil have a fight one day. So in that, it's not a society. Okay, so we are a couple of nomads coming from different places and just staying there. So me and Swapnil have a fight one day, and I am more able because I am a hunter gatherer. I have been able to contribute and hire in a lot of people with me. So I am able physically, as well as I might be manipulative. So I am physically and psychologically more able than Swapnil. Swapnil is a man with a family in a setting, and I come to that place. So what happens is Swapnil is for example, let's consider Swapnil is having an egg farm. eh? He has a farm where he grows poultry. So what I do is, with my ability, with my men, and with my ability to speak and convince and manipulate others in the society, what I do is I start stealing, or I start harassing Swapnil, and I start stealing eggs and poultry hen from him to feed my clan. Okay, so that's not right. So Swapnil comes to me one day and says that this is not right. Just because you are able, he musters up the courage and comes up to me, and he says that just because aap balwan hai doesn't mean that you will do wrong to me. So I say ki aapko jo karna aap kar lijiye, because I am confident, because I have been to many places and I can, simply put, I can do that. But then let's say somebody else comes in and he tries to be the mediator between us. So he tells that, see, this is not right. Huh? Just because I am able and I have the resources and the ability doesn't mean I'll be harassing other people. So what the mediator does is he says that if you want to live in this place, he sets up few rules, and he says that if you want to live in this place, you have to let go of some of your liberties. Because just because you are able to do things doesn't mean that you'll do that. Some of the liberties that you think you have to let them go. And then if everybody agrees to all of those terms, we can live together. So that's how society came into being. अब समझ रहे? So this mediator was government. The things that he set up, the rules that he set up became law. So that's how a society evolved. For if I explain it in other words, consider I am someone, the losing liberty part. See, if I'm living in US and I have enough money and enough power, I can go buy weapons. But that doesn't mean that I'll start shooting people. So that's the liberty. That's the thing that I give up from my side, so that there is a set pattern, set law set up, so that everybody can live happily, a maximum happiness of maximum people. That's how society started evolving. That's how laws started evolving. That's how rights, human rights started evolving. This is not how I am just explaining how things came into being. All right, so that's how we set up as a society. So that's one of the biggest, our ability to talk and resolve things and come together is what makes us different from other animals. And that's, I think that is, these are my own thoughts. Okay, so this is what I believe helped us move away from the food chain. If you see, all the animals were categorized into one bracket, and we call them animals, and then us humans, we were able to separate ourselves and come up with this what we see today. No other animal has been able to do. So what I believe is our ability to come together, talk, loosen our liberties, yeah, consider empathy, sympathy is what eventually led to what we are today, society, Homo sapiens. So that's how laws, and that's how banks came in. That's how institutions came in. That's how we evolved as human beings. So, all right. So there is a very big difference between criminology and criminal justice system. So criminology is, as I said, the science of understanding why, how, where, all of those angles of deviancy. But then criminal justice system is a very specific four-pillared system. People say it's five-pillared. It's a four-pillared system. So the first pillar is police. Second pillar is prosecution. Third pillar is judiciary. Fourth pillar is corrections. Fifth pillar, which again have been coming up, is forensic sciences. But then there are a lot of arguments that say that forensic science should be an individual pillar of criminal justice. But then others say that it's already considered as a part of policing. Investigation के अंदर forensic science and the ambit, the umbrella is policing. Some people say that it's already covered. Some people say that it should be an individual field. Again, it's a matter of debate. So that's how the criminal justice system evolved. But then you have to note, before I completely delve into the criminological aspects of criminal justice system, there's one more thing that I'd like to talk about, which is victimology. If you see police, prosecution is sarkari vakil, okay, not defense lawyer or uh, private lawyers. These are people who have studied law and are under the aegis of the government. Sarkari vakil जिसे बोलते हैं. So police, again, run by government. Prosecution, run by government. Judiciary, although not run by government, should be independent. That's again questionable. And corrections, again. So all of those four pillars of the criminal justice system are mainly meant for the offender. Yeah. Police, what is the main role of police? Crime prevention, and apart from other VIP duties and providing security and all. Most of the major of the chunk of police, which is also the biggest drawback with police. If you see, most of our duties is committed and conducted by police. For example, if there is a 24 26 Republic Day parade, police is employed, traffic police is employed, cyber police is employed. Police are the law and order. People who are trained to control crimes are actually doing conducting investigations into cyber crimes. For example, I remember there was this very funny incident where uh, where cyber crime was committed, okay, and it was 20 years ago. So somebody said that so you have to confiscate the uh, mode through which the crime was committed. So cyberspace, computer, through computer the crime was committed. So once the police says ki जाके आप उठा के लाइए scene of crime से proof, and the police bought the monitor. Such, again, I'm not blaming the police, but the police are non-sensitized about cyber crimes that he didn't even know that most of the things of the computer are in the CPU, not in the monitor. So the police constable ended up bringing the monitor into the police station. So that's what I'm telling. Biggest drawback with police. We use police in all of those things. VIP duty में police है, disaster में police है, trafficking में police है. But then there should be so that's one of the biggest challenges that the criminal justice system is facing. We don't have specialized police, specialized enforcement division doing individual duties. We just have recruitment for common thing called police, and that police ends up doing everything. And 80% of police is constabulary. All of those IPS officers you see, they don't even get a chance to get into the field. All right, as a newly recruit IPS officers, you can be ACP, DCP, SP. There you might get a chance to get into the field. But then 80% of police is constabulary. Constabulary is people who are constables. Constable, ASI, SI, all of those people. So, sorry, I have a tendency of going away. So, 4 pillars of criminal justice system. So, what I was trying to say is all of these are for offenders. Eh? Who does the Sarkari Vakil fight for? Offender. Who does the court pronounce judgment for? Offender. Prisons mein kaun hai? Offenders. So, what about victims? Victims, actually, criminologists should talk about victims more than the causality of crime or understanding crime or whatever. But then that's not the case. And unfortunately, in US and UK, people have understood this and they have come up with a lot of victimological help for victims. But then India has not been able to keep up. India, mein, there are things, for example, victim compensation scheme, 125 CCRPC. We have few provisions for the victims, but then they are not translated into the field. Because our criminal justice system is so riddled with a lot of other duties that victim ko to hum bhul hi jate. It's also very important to talk about victims. So victimology in the last 10-15 years has been coming up, and there are a lot of not in India, but for example US mein, for example India mein, how do we have a statistics of crime? We have NCRB publishing crime in India report. So how do we get the crime in India report? We have individual police stations that send their data to district crime record bureau. The district crime record bureau sends it to state crime record bureau. State crime record bureau compiles and send it to national crime record bureau. So we are just, most of our bureaucratic headed institutions, organizations are just clerks, glorified stenographers. उनका काम ये होता है कि कहीं से माल, मतलब कहीं से चीज आता है, वो इकट्ठा करते हैं और पब्लिश कर देते हैं. So there's no real understand, because we came from a system which was followed by Britishers. Most of the Indians that were a part of this bureaucratic system, so this has been existing since 200, 300 years since the Britishers. So we just were a part of this machinery called British Raj. There were no individual thoughts. For example, somebody was just this Delhi FSL mein, there was recruitment ka, because we are not allowed to think. People in the system are not allowed to think and act on themselves. They only do things that are ordered. And unfortunately, Again, no, let's not get into that. So victimology. For example, in US, there's a lot of victimization survey that has come in, wherein the Department of Justice goes individually to households and collects uh, data, crime data individually from the people. So, and they publish it annually, and it's called National Crime Victimization Survey. There were a lot of attempts to even start it in India, but then again, just because we are not trained to think for ourselves, it couldn't actually materialize. And there was a lot of in UK. There's called victim codes where there are specific. In India, victimology exists because there are few NGOs who are dedicatedly without any money, without anything. They do their duty, and it's them who file their cases in NGO on behalf of NGOs in the courts, and that helps get them some monetary compensation. But then you'll feel ki crime ho gaya, you're a victim of crime. If my brother is killed or my mother is killed or my father is killed, how 15 lakh rupees will be beneficial? Humans can never be replaced with money. So that's also another debate on how do we actually compensate victims. Do we actually mistreat them by throwing in some money and telling ki ab ho gaya, case closed, you look after yourself, or do we actually do something really rehabilitative for them? Again, these are all debates that I don't see people debating about, which should be a part of a lot of. Again, so that's the problem of social sciences. No? You unfortunately, maybe it's because our schools and our colleges don't allow us to think. Already frustrated teachers permanent hai nahi hai, that's what they bothers them. These kind of, and I'm telling this because see, कितने लोग हैं आज यहाँ पे? 40 लोग हैं, some 30-35 people. All of you are here because somewhere in your mind you want to have a safe place for the future women and children. आगे के generation के लिए you want a safe place. It comes from within. But then that's not enough. Just having a cause and fighting for the cause is not enough. You need to be really prepared. And for example, I'll just 10th 12th mein you guys might have remembered that there were a lot of trigonometry and mathematics in your courses. So I had those courses, and I used to remember that "Hey, ये क्या मतलब when will we ever use trigonometry in our daily life है ना ज्यादातर आजकल तो मोबाइल में we've got calculator मोबाइल से calculator खोल के we can do simple addition, subtraction, division, multiplication is what we require. Why have we done all those kind of differentiation, integration, 10th 12th RD Sharma? What's the whole purpose of doing all of those mathematics when it's not at all useful for us? That's when we need to realize that human brain is neuroplastic. So once it stretches into a certain extent, it doesn't go back. The whole point of those mathematical things were to learn critical thinking. Okay, problem solving is the whole crux of putting your brain through certain, and that's very much required in social sciences, because social sciences mein problem ka solution is very much required. If you talk to a lot of people, we can debate on problems a lot, but then we need to come up with solutions. Okay. For example, the biggest problem, if I say with the courts, is there's a lot of pendency in the courts. There are some 4 crore cases pending in all the apex court, high courts, and district courts. So, how do we come up with a solution for that? So, all of those things is what actually criminologists should be thinking about. Okay, so we talked about the introduction of criminology. We talked about the 4 pillars of criminology. Now I'll move on to what India-based some techniques or some theories or some practical things that Indian criminologists have applied in the field, and they have been able to succeed in not preventing crime, but let's say preventing crime to a certain extent. Okay, so this is a story in Tamil Nadu, in a hamlet in Tirunelveli. I know this story because I'm friends with someone who was a member in the Child Welfare Committee. CWC, आप लोगों ने so people, so juvenile crimes. Again, criminology also talks about juvenile crimes. People who are below 18, who are called children, and if they have a tendency of committing crime or behaving deviantly, we categorize them into two parts. One is a child in need of care and protection, and the another is child in conflict with law. So, so this is a case in one hamlet in Tirunelveli. So what happens is there is a case of theft in the village. So these people reach there, the member reaches there, and most of the people there are angry because they thought that बड़ा pure सा गांव था वो, है ना? People never thought that it is a case of missing gold. So people said that we could never even imagine that people from our hamlet, our village would end up stealing, you know, among ourselves. So that became a very moral issue there. So this CWC member, she was very enthusiastic about. Today, it's a very big thing in the field of criminology. It's called restorative justice. She wanted to actually apply the principles of restorative justice and understand or actually, so what she said was she put a drum in this. It was a low populated simple people living in that hamlet. Okay, some 100 people used to live in that gaon. So she put a drum, बड़ा सा ड्रम उन्होंने गांव के बीच में रखा, and she said that let's give a chance to everybody. We should be giving a chance to everybody to reform or reclaim. So what she said was, what everybody do is take a handful of cow dung and everybody put the cow dung inside the drum. And the person who has actually stolen the gold put the gold inside the cow dung and drop it in the drum. So that we can eventually reclaim the gold that was stolen. And she assured that there will be no action, there will be no punitive action towards this. And so and everybody started putting the handful of gobar cow dung inside that drum, and eventually the gold was found. So again, so so what the most of the criminal justice system follows is a punitive method. Now, I remember one of my senior, he had conducted psychological profiling of sexual offenders in Gujarat, and what he found was he met a man who, due to rejection while he was studying in college, the offender while he was studying in college, due to rejection and the inability to handle the rejection, he he approached a girl and he got rejected, and he actually ended up sexually assaulting, raping that girl, and he was not satisfied, and so it's 7 years that you get imprisoned in 1 year once you are convicted of rape. So after 7 years, once he gets out, what he does is he again tracks that girl and again rapes her. So the whole point of spending so much of not only money and energy of police, the prosecution, the judiciary, there was a whole system that sat for him to decide his case. He was imprisoned for 7 years. I think we spend about 1300 rupees per prisoner per day. So 1300 rupees per him per day in 7 years. All of those amount were wasted. And what he did after coming out, he again, same victim, he tracked her out and he again raped her. So the whole, I think that's where the criminal justice system fails. It's because we are more punitive. We don't understand the the thought and the idea behind why somebody is deviant. So that is where the restorative justice, although it's not proven that restorative justice can be a solution towards hardened and heinous offenses, but we can start somewhere. And in US, it's called diversion programs. So in US and UK, they have come up with such restorative justice practitioners who have actually gotten really hardened and heinous offenders reformed through compassion. Compassion, it's mostly based on Buddhist philosophy. So this was one beautiful thing which I observed, because sona ka sona bhi mil gaya. And she didn't stop there. So the biggest point in restorative justice is the person who is accused or who is offender has to be held accountable. ऐसा नहीं कि बस वो you just put the sona in the gobar and you just done कि आपको कोई पकड़ेगा नहीं. But then the process is not punitive, है ना. हम आपको hardcore punishment के through नहीं ले जाएंगे. What we'll do is we'll make you accountable. So it's called reintegrative shaming. So people whom you love, है ना, who really care about you, उनके presence में we actually positively shame that person. Shame has a very negative connotation with it, but then positively make him understand what his acts were, how did his act affect his family and the society in large, and we make him understand that this was your whole thing that you did and how it affected society, the victim, and eventually you. And so it's a lot of trust that involves in restorative justice. So that's one of the newest crime prevention techniques that people have. But then it's not, people don't buy this because see, society wants a safe life. I can say this because I am into the field. I've listened to a lot of success stories. I've read a lot of peer reviewed articles in journals, in high graded journals, and I know that this will work. But then society doesn't care. What society cares about is their own safety. For them, uh, so there's a lot of involvement of society in restorative justice. So why should I involve in all of those jamela? है ना? मतलब I should be caring about my own family, my own people, and I should be moving on with me being a provider for my own family. Why should I take the responsibility of others who are criminals, and why should I give them chance? You know, we should actually lock them apart and put them in prisons. You know, why should I, but then that's the whole problem of, again, criminal justice system is the contribution of society. For example, in India, we still debate whether death penalty should be legal or illegal. And in places such as Australia and Canada, people are thinking what we did as a society, what wrong we did as a society, that our children are committing crime. So there's a lot of, repeat the four. It's a police, prosecution, judiciary, and corrections. Police, where it all starts, and a police investigates the case, presents a charge sheet to the court, and that thing is presented in the court in judiciary by the prosecutor hota hai vakil, and the judge, the judiciary pronounces punishment based on the effectiveness or efficacy or the depth of the crime caused, and he's put into corrections. So these are the four pillars of criminal justice system. But then again, as I said, all of these things you simply Google, you can find what is criminology. It's AI ka zamana, so you can always get better lectures, better framed materials on a click. But then what I thought is, it's my duty is to provide you opportunity to think. कि क्यों, why for example, I'm pretty sure 1,000 years ago also people might have thought ki why do people commit crime. 2,000 years also ago also people might have thought कि अरे क्यों लोग crime, क्यों लोग गुस्सा करते हैं, why do people behave aggressively, why do people murder other people, है ना. These thoughts, and I'm sure all of these people here also have this thought कि अरे कोई rape क्यों करता है, हैं? But then it's our duty, it's my duty to provide you opportunity to critically think. And that's what my major aim of talking in such seminars is to make equip you with certain skills. And there's few, so I also have been working in prisons, and there's few, although most, so it's been 7 years that I've been working in field, and mostly in prisons, and most of my efforts have failed because I'm not a system in myself. All the things I do is on individual level. So you need a lot of support from. So one thing I've realized, for anything to work, for example, if we say that, for example, one of the biggest problem of in forensic sciences is the delay in submission of forensic reports. The whole issue of getting into the scene of crime, recording it, the chain of custody, वो इतना delayed होता है कि the eventual, do you understand the whole process of justice, eventual justice, putting somebody into prison or pardoning him or giving justice to victims, all depends on how well the forensic scientists do their duty. Again, I'm not blaming कि वो लोग duty नहीं करते. For example, I was in NHRC and we did conduct a meeting on understanding why do we have a delay, heightened delay. There are at least 2,000, 3,000, thousands when there are cases pending in all of these forensic sciences lab. We don't have enough lab. We don't have enough professionals. है ना, मतलब people who are on contract. It's, है ना, again, as I said, only the thought for cause कि दुनिया के लिए कुछ अच्छा करना है, it's not the only factor. There are a lot of other things. The tired bureaucrats always end up shouting on their lower staff, so their morale is always down. And it's all a, how do I say, it's a psychological, sociological issue why forensic scientists have not been able to perform in the fields. And we only have a capacity of, let's say, 50 cases per day investigation, a capacity to investigate 50 cases per day, and then we've got 3,000 cases pending. So it'll take time. It'll take time. There's a risk of contamination of the things that we bring in. For example, there's a lot of analysis of blood splatter. So how do we analyze all of those? Do we individually analyze individual blood? Or so there are a lot of other issues, technical issues, and our inability to actually provide expertise, resulting in uh, delay in forensic sciences reports. Yeah. So coming back to one of the success stories that uh, I faced was, so while I was in prison, there was this man who was accused of IPC 376 rape, and he was inside. And what we realized, our team realized, was he was very good in sports, and he was actually a part of his school football team, and used to play football very well. And fortunately, the art prison that I was part of, we had sufficient provisions for football. So he was part of the Tihar team and he used to go come play. And so rape is a non-bailable offense. Unless the victim takes back the case, you are imprisoned. So he was there for good 3 years. In Salme, he developed himself as a good footballer. There was this another NGO called Angels Academy. You should go read about Angels Academy. Angels Academy again helps people who are in jail develop into good human beings using football as a medium. Can you understand? A good criminologist should also be a good footballer, because you don't know what means and through what ideas you can develop someone. So through Angels Academy, we connected him. He went out and he's in Delhi and he plays for this football club. And I remember after getting out, he went to Nepal and he played few matches and he got his first check of 5,000 rupees. And we were having a talk on how he will effectively use those money. So his father is also imprisoned. Okay, it's in some other case. So I thought, so so I wanted to know that in what way will he actually utilize that money. 5,000 rupees, although not much, it was his first own earning. So there was something that some charm to your own earning, your own first earning, however low it is, that has a significant effect on your own psyche. So I thought that he'll spend that money on him. Maybe he'll buy some shoes for himself. He'll buy some clothes for himself, or he'll take his team out for a party, or he'll meet his father and give the money to his father, ki first salary. But he actually broke all of our expectations, and he collected that money, saved up that money, and he ended up taking admission in a BA course. IGNOU se he ended up enrolling himself in a BA course, which was again very motivating, because I never thought that he would do that. See, we see neither me or neither my team or neither Angels Academy is taking credit for what he is today. He's a very developed individual today, not only professionally but also as a human being. He's been able to develop himself very beautifully, because not only because his behavior was not only sexually deviant, but he was also into a lot of gundagardi. You know, he was a gangster member, gang member, and he used to have a lot of deviant friends and deviant activities, drugs and all. But then he's been able to get out of all of those. But then we don't take credit of his improvement. What he did was by himself. But then just the thought of getting enrolled in an education program and the thought of working towards himself was real. But then this is one case, one success story out of 3,000 stories that we've involved in. Okay. I'm not saying that all of the 3,000 individuals we worked with failed. Most of them have gone back into the life of crime. For example, I remember COVID. During COVID, there was this to decongest the prisons. Supreme Court had ordered emergency parole. So, according to that order, there were some 3,500 inmates that were out on parole, and I got a chance to meet few of the inmates out of parole. And so I used to live in Janakpuri because that was closer to people who know about Delhi. I used to live in Janakpuri. That is considered a okay place, and it's considered a okay place to live. So, so this boy comes to my place and saw this brief moment that I called him. And I used to live in a gated society. And he says to me, "Ki, sir, aap yahan rehte ho?" So it didn't matter to me, you know. It's I took a place there because I could afford it. I had two other roommates who were my friends, and we really liked the place. And a L-shaped balcony sabka. But then this person, the young boy says that, "Sir, aap yahan rehte hai?" So I said, "हाँ." So he says, the very thing that he said really blew me, because he said कि सर मैं अगर ऐसे जगह रहता तो मैं कभी crime नहीं करता. So I wanted to understand what he meant by that. So he said that he lives in Uttam Nagar. Again, people who know about Delhi knows that Uttam Nagar is a slum. So he says that the morning that he wakes up, there are people fighting, there are people breaking bottles over each other's head, there is open sewage line that is flowing through their front of their house. He cannot sleep, he cannot wake up, there is no sensible conversation between family members, there is no neighborhood empathy sympathy that is prevalent there. It's a mess. The place is mess. So just to avoid from that place, he started going out, and unfortunately, in the influence of drugs and to get love that he never received from his house, he started forming association with people who are already into crime. So that's how he ended up as a criminal. He was a pickpocket, chori karta tha, mobile snatching, chain snatching. That's what he was into. But he said that if he was brought up in a okay place, है ना, मतलब the things that we are privileged to are very fancy things for people who are into crime. So all of those things affect what do you think and how do you behave and socially. So again, this is also a theory. It's called the American Dream by strain theory by Robert Merton, where he said that most of the people who commit crime because they are not well to do socially, and just to have that American dream. So in early 20th century, there was this thing called American Dream, where having a good house, having housewife, मतलब, good family, educated children, a car was considered the American dream. And people who could not afford this committed crime so that they can also have an American dream. But then this is not a explanation of why people commit white collar crimes. You know? We've got crimes called money laundering and cyber crimes. Most of the cyber criminals are educated and very well to do in their life. So how does this explain? So this doesn't explain, the strain theory doesn't explain newer forms of crime. I'll also touch brief on the white collar crimes. You guys might have heard, again, see, white collar crimes, money laundering, embezzlement of funds, organized crime. All of these things can be, you will learn in your course. But then there was this very interesting thing that I learned, which I thought I'll share. You guys might have seen rich people have a habit of buying very costly paintings. They invest a lot in paintings. They invest a lot in uh, wine bottles. They invest a lot in a lot of expensive art forms. That actually is not for their craze for art, but rather is a way to launder money. है ना, ब्लैक वाइट करने का तरीका होता है वो. बिकॉज मोस्ट ऑफ द पेंटिंग्स, ठीक है, वी कैन से कि शौकीन लोग हैं, है ना, बड़ा बड़ा पेंटिंग रख लिया घर पे, है ना, बड़ा बड़ा 30-30 साल पुराना वाइन का बॉटल रख लिया घर पे. बट एक्चुअली दैट हैज अ वेरी डीप कॉनोटेशन ऑफ एक्चुअली रिच पीपल embezzle, मतलब laundering black money into white money. Even when I knew about this money laundering, again, there is again a need to study white collar crimes, because most of the funds of white collar crimes actually funds a lot of terrorist activities and drug related activities which ruin a country. So it's also very important to, we can say that कि अमीर इंसान उसके कैपेबिलिटी के हिसाब से ही, जैसे people who might have seen Lucky Bhaskar, मतलब conditions in his life led him to be very manipulative and end up having those 100 crore rupees. But then in the process of whitening that black money, most of the funds goes into funding terrorist activities and illegal trade such as arms trafficking, organ trafficking. So it's very important to also study and talk about such new forms of crime. And again, so I've got 4 more minutes, so I'll just wind up. I also call myself a criminologist. Okay. So I have a theory of crime. And although it's not, so to theorize a crime, you need a lot of practical, it should be provable. You need to prove that your theory of crime actually works. But then what I have felt working with criminals and reading is somebody turns into, but again, I've not been able to formulate it. I don't have hypothesis, I don't have postulates. But then what I have understood is the whole idea of crime is who you are. That's in nutshell what the theory is. For example, what if explaining that, the idea of who do you think you are in your own idea of self is what will result into crime. I know it's a bit not so constructed, but then if you feel that you have been a victim of circumstances, if you feel that you were not given the chances, and if you feel that you can get away doing this crime, if you feel confident that अरे कोई नहीं देख रहा तो चुरा लेते हैं, if you are confident in your abilities to be a criminal, है ना, your idea of yourself, how do you hold yourself in your own head is what results in crime. Again, let's see in coming 5-10 years if I am able to prove this and theorize this as a crime, but then that's what I have felt. You know, this is also for example, if we say that society is the reason for crime, but then most of the crime that happens today, people who people commit crime, for example white collar crimes. I've met few people who have laundered money and they're very confident in themselves. It's not because of poor condition, poor, they might have the best family, best caretaking, love giving parents, best society they might have lived in, but then the idea of themselves is what actually results. That's what I feel. All right, so I'll just conclude what I covered in this 1 hour. We touched on where criminology began from, the idea of understanding crime, the why part of the why crime. We are again back to why crime. Now, why people commit crime. We touched on the 4 pillars of criminal justice system. We discussed some challenges of the 4 pillars of criminal justice system. We discussed some case studies in the criminal justice system. And I'll continue tomorrow evening on why actually people commit crime. Some 5-10 theories of documented, proved theories of uh, the reasons behind crime. So I think that's it. We've got 1 more minute. We don't take up questions. Huh?
Hello.
What is what? Just a moment, Swapnil.
Yeah.
Buying antique can convert black money. It's because how do you spend those money? And आप इतना महंगा पेंटिंग आप कहाँ से लाते हो? If I have 50 lakh Indian rupee that I have uh, like gotten through black sources, and if Swapnil is a painter और मैं तुमको 50 लाख रुपए देता हूँ, and if I am so powerful that I can hide the source where the money came from, तो 50 white हो गया ना, and I have the painting in my house. So, and also Swapnil will be my man. So actually, जो 50 lakh white हुआ है, that will eventually come back to me. I'm not saying all of the people who are into art does this, but then it has been proven. What is white collar crime? All right, just another 1 minute. White collar earlier, again, most of the criminological definitions were from West, and most of the people thought that crime is committed by blue collar people. Blue collar कौन होते हैं जो दिन का दिहाड़ी करते हैं. So they were differentiated and based on uniforms. They had blue uniforms. People used to do daily wage work, laborers हो गए. So they were criminals. And then white collar people who wear white shirt, है ना, coat suit में होते हैं. So that is where the name came from. And if I explain what white collar crimes are, it's mostly related to money. Money laundering हो गया, organized crime हो गया, corruption हो गया, embezzlement हो गया, all of those types of crime. All right, Swapnil, my time's up.
Thank you so much, sir. We thoroughly enjoyed this session. It was a thought-provoking session.